Our topic is that will the emerging cannabis industry make the Canadian economy great again? So here's the agenda. We'll go in the sequence of introduction, impact on Canadian economy, global cannabis industry, SWOT analysis, and finally, we will give recommendations based on evaluation criteria. So first is the introduction to cannabis. The increased public acceptance of cannabis facilitates a large demand for various products. So we will talk about two major parts, medical products and recreational products. So for medical products, it can be in the form of oil or tablets. The amount of two cannabinoids, THC and CBD, also plays a role in categorizing cannabis products. So THC is a substance that affects how you think, act, and feel. CBD is a substance that lessens the pain and other symptoms. Recreational products offers a larger variety compared to medical use, including edibles, dried products, ingestible extra, inhalable extra, and accessories. And based on the research conducted by Stat Canada, youth from age 15 to 34 is a major consumer for recreational cannabis. However, there's a risk associated with consumption in early age that it may harm the brain and cause cognitive difficulties. And Health Canada suggests that people should delay their consumption after age 25. Both Generation X and baby boomers are the major consumption groups for medical cannabis, as they tend to have a health condition more than others. At the same time, there's a risk interacting with other medicines and affecting blood pressure. Thus, proper guidance should be given by physicians prior to the consumption. There are three major operating systems in domestic market: dispensary, retailer, and caregiver. Dispensary requires physician's referrals, similar to prescription, and each province in Canada has different dispensary laws. Also, each province and territory has its own rule for cannabis, including legal minimum age, where adults may consume it, and where adults may use it, and how much adults may possess. So retailers used to go through a lottery system for licenses. Now it changed to an application process. The table on the right is the numbers of licenses in different provinces. So now I will talk about the impact on Canadian economy. We can easily perceive that the impact through the measurement of GDP. Non-medical cannabis industry has a relative stable contribution to GDP around 4,000 million each year, while the GDP for medical cannabis is 2018 is almost 100 times number in 2015. So together, the cannabis sector accounts for $7,214 million GDP in January 2020. And we can tell from the number that the medical cannabis industry is skyrocketing, and there's a good future prospect of the cannabis sector. So the four major Canadian producers are Cannabis Growth Corporation, Kronos Group, Aurora Cannabis, and Aphora. So the map on the right shows their location, and most of them headquartered in Ontario. Another big impact is on tax. In 5.5 months after legalization, the cannabis sector generated a total of 186 million taxes, including 53 million provincial consumer taxes, 36 million federal consumer taxes, 19 million duty of manufacturer and producers, and 79 million provincial excise tax. So the percentage of each portion is shown in the chart. The additional tax income can be used to boost Canadian economy, building infrastructure, and providing services. With the growing demand in the cannabis industry, Canada once had to import workers to fill out the jobs. So the graphs on the left shows the number of employees and companies dramatically increased after the legalization of recreational cannabis in 2018. No doubt that cannabis sector is in the midst of a job boom. The job opening includes production, administration, marketing, distribution, development, and maintenance. So the total of the full-time Canadian workers will grow up to 25,000 in 2020, and in addition, wages, salaries, and employee benefits accounted for 29% of cannabis expenses, indicating its contribution to the employment. So the graph below is the cost for a startup cannabis retail store, and we can see that the portion for staffing is larger than other parts. However, the cannabis industry is facing the threat of black market due to its competitive pricing. So the table below is a price per gram in different regions. We can see that the average per gram for legal cannabis is higher than black market pricing. And the main reasons for the high legal cannabis price is that the strict growing condition on humidity and temperature incurs more cost, and strict testing process requires more quality inspectors. To ensure the consistency in content, such as the amount of THC and CBD, is very expensive. And the packaging needs to be child-proof to protect the health and safety of young people. Also, taxes and licensing fees are being transferred to the price. Therefore, it is very difficult for the government to reduce price being competitive.
To realize the economic potential of the industry in the long term, we must also consider the benefits associated with globalization. Aside from Canada, we divided the world map into the United States, Latin America, Europe, and Asia Pacific, and we will discuss them separately. For the United States, medical cannabis has been made legal as of July 2019 in 33 states. In 10 states, mainly located in the west and northeast of US, legalized the recreational use of cannabis. In 2019, the value of medical cannabis and recreational cannabis use was about 4.7 billion US dollars. By 2025, the projected market value is estimated to be over 13 billion US dollars for medical cannabis only. Consumers are an important part of cannabis market growth. The number of US adults that has used marijuana within their lifetime has been increasing. Cannabis can be used in a variety of forms with many methods for consumption. The most common form of marijuana consumed in US was cannabis flower, followed by edibles. The demand for medical cannabis is huge, yet medical cannabis has not been widely used, so there is still large market for medical cannabis. California accounted for the largest share in US market in 2018 and is expected to grow continuously. The market expansion in the state can be attributed to the expanding population base and growing number of cannabis business. Furthermore, the state has legalized both medical and recreational cannabis. Also, medical marijuana dispensaries are open and thriving in Michigan, result in the establishment of a rich cannabis culture. Therefore, we highly recommend focusing on medical cannabis and targeting California and Michigan. For Latin America, Agriculture is a highly successful sector due to its favorable growing environment and low cost of production because of its cheap labor and land. Many countries such as Uruguay, Colombia, Mexico, and Peru follow the steps of America and start to relaxing cannabis regulation policies. Many countries have been decriminalized possession of small amount. There are two reasons behind that. First, diminish violence associated with drug trade. Second, relieve overburden of prison system. So far, the Colombia government has created a legal framework to operate in the industry of medical cannabis, allowing individuals and companies to sell and distribute cannabis seeds, cultivate cannabis plants, manufacture derivatives, and export cannabis-based products to foreign countries. As the Colombian government supports an open market economy, there are no restrictions on foreigners entering the sector as long as they meet legislative requirements. Therefore, Colombia is a country with ideal growing environment and production resources. We intend to cultivate the cannabis in Colombia. For Europe, many countries decriminalize the possession and use of marijuana. Italy, Denmark, United Kingdom, and Greece approved medical cannabis law one after another. However, Germany has largest demand for medical cannabis. The medical cannabis market was established and estimated to be was 73.7 million pounds in 2018 and expected to rise dramatically over the upcoming years. So we plan to have a finger in the pie of Germany. For Asia Pacific, Japan and China have high demands due to the aging population and a huge customer base, which is also attractive to ambitious Canadian cannabis firms. For Australia, approximately 7 people per day are being approved for medical cannabis. The combined Australia-New Zealand market could reach US $8.7 billion by 2028. Firms can consider joint venture with Japanese and Chinese firms and develop markets in Australia and New Zealand. We developed some specific criteria of potential markets. First, culture difference and political climate. It is essential to understand the laws and culture difference to practical business activity in a foreign country. Second, supply and logistic connection. We have to make sure there are ways to cultivate and transport cannabis. Third, public opinion of cannabis. If people's perception of cannabis is negative, the market development will not be successful. GDP per capita, as medical cannabis is considered a normal good, the higher people's income, more they consume. Endemic population is the size of potential customer base. Considering the criteria I mentioned, we choose to globalize in the United States, Germany, and Colombia. The US and Canada are already close trade partners. They share many borders and resources together. Also, US has great market potential and good location. As it's close to both Canada and Latin America, where we plan to cultivate cannabis. The local flow of supplies is slow. Therefore, US needs supply from Canada, and it's one of the advantages of Canadian corporations. For its disadvantages, the exchange rate is not stable, and the US tax system is complicated. It will require legal and accounting professionals to help you to avoid unexpected tax liabilities. Germany is selected as the demand for medical marijuana is booming. New cannabis business may find it difficult to enter the market because applicants need to understand IT security, banking, European privacy law, and data protection. But Germany has the largest customer base for cannabis among all European nations. The development of knowledge in this sector will follow with investment and time. And then we will eventually benefit from the boom. For Colombia, as I mentioned, Colombia is in Latin America. It has ideal growing environment for agriculture, cheap labor and land. And the government holds an open attitude towards foreign investors. However, the Colombia government is moving forward with ambitions to develop Colombia's cannabis market. They are supporting local firms to develop their business. Therefore, Colombia will be a global scale competitor, and other countries in Latin America have not fully legalized cannabis. So the market is small, and we plan to primarily cultivate in Colombia. But we need to pay attention to the public security risk due to the threat of violent cartels and gangs. China and Japan have sensitive culture and political environment. So far, we do not consider developing the market in the short term. By taking Porter's five forces into consideration, we choose these three countries due to its low entry barriers, moderate competition, and supportive political environment.
Moving on to the recommendation, I will talk about how Canadian market should act domestically and internationally. In the domestic market, I will talk about how different stakeholders, including government, main producers, and consumers are affected. And as for the global market, I'm going to talk about how can Canadian cannabis market cooperate with the world to pursue better profitability. The Cannabis Act, conducted by the federal government, sets down many of the core regulations, including criminal code framework, minimum age of purchase, possession limits, and home cultivation, medical and production. The provincial government has laid out their framework for retail, including where to buy the product, minimum standards for location, and what stores can sell. The municipal government sets out public cannabis consumption and local development of regulations. All levels of government are important as they directly affecting the future of cannabis industry. The energy cost of growing cannabis products should also be addressed in order to avoid negative environmental impact. Since one marijuana plant grown in a national forest uses 900 grams of water per plant per growing season. As for the social impact, there are more open conversations about cannabis' archaic stigma. Though cannabis is generally considered to be a drug with very high addiction and fatality, now it is a part of lifestyle and there's more acceptance and recognition of the ideas that it's not as unhealthy as alcohol. However, there will be more cannabis exposure to public, which also includes younger adults and mid-teens. Cannabis dependence remains a social concern after repeated use. According to several conservative estimates, every dollar invested in addiction treatment programs yield a return of between $4 and $7 in reduced drug-related crime and illegal conducts, such as buying or growing in this new agricultural phenomenon. Because the main producers are the one directly associated with cannabis sales and cultivation, they have social responsibilities to accommodate for a pharmaceutical grade criteria and growing manufacturing process, while managing security, product diversion, and cross-contamination risks. Also, it is important for them to address the environmental impacts they may carry as well. As for the water use, we recommend more companies start using aquaponics system. It is an eco-friendly system starting by fish producing waste that helps plants grow, and the plants clean the water before it's flushed back into fish tanks, and the whole process repeats. It promotes reuse of water and it's really eco-friendly. Since half of the Canadians have consumed cannabis in some levels, and nowadays, a cannabis website is really easy to access with just entering any number of your birth year. So, other than the medical expertise advice, we think the education about these topics to ensure users are informed and help the prevention of problematic cannabis use is really important, including the quantities of THC in products and how it may affect personal health, and effects of different ingestion methods, effects of impairment, changes to drug policies, as well as tools, training, and supports available in the local communities. Moving on to the global market. So right now, only license holders under the cannabis regulations may import or export cannabis, and only for medical or scientific purposes. There are two companies. Tilray has received approval from the US government to export a CBD product to California for a clinical trial in September 2018. The DEA approved the shipment of legal medical cannabis from Canada's Canopy Growth to a research partner in the US. So it is promising for the imports of Canadian cannabis products going southward, as long as they have already set up and helped the US laboratories for the medical and scientific purposes. And you can see on the map, the blue area highlight the states have legalized both medical and recreational use, and the darker green area highlighted the legalization of medical cannabis. So we think it's better to start by targeting the blue areas, the states located in the western, since they have more public tolerance and development regulations for cannabis products. Moving on to the German markets, in 2018, there were 60,000 people who have been treated using medical cannabis, and with a total of 95,000 prescriptions being made in Germany alone. And 60 of the medical prescriptions were reimbursed by insurance companies in 2019, meaning more people can afford the treatment. And the German medical market is worth about 133 millions. So in order to take care of the German market supply shortage, on 2019 April 5th, Germany awards domestic cultivation license to Aphria, Aurora, and Jamaican. Aphria and Aurora are both Canadian companies, and in total of the three companies, they will be allowed to grow a combined total of 10,400 grams of medical cannabis over the next 4 years, with a likelihood to get government's approval to increase the capacity by 10% each year. We recommend through the local cultivation, the exportation can continue since imports continue, because Canada and Netherlands are the only countries legally approved in Germany to import. Most importantly, Germany can be used as a stepstone to penetrate European market in the future. And as for the Colombia, located in South America, Latin America, we recommend can be used as an ideal location to develop cannabis cultivation, because there is Amazon natural region and access to land and ideal climate suitable for cannabis cultivation. Colombia is also following Uruguay to decriminalize medical cannabis, hemp, or CBD products. There is also lower cost for production and labor, because there's strategic location, easier to transport and monitor the products. We think it will be the ideal place to locate the production in the future. Overall, it is our presentation, and we do think if Canadian cannabis market is moving strategically in this promising market, and it will definitely